Welcome everyone. It has been a minute since I feel like we've just chatted and caught up. So much has happened in the past month and I miss y'all. I miss talking with y'all as much as I appreciate and enjoyed having my guests over the past few weeks. There's nothing like just a one-on-one chat with you and me. One of the main things I wanted to talk with you guys about today is the 4B movement and basically all of the recent updates with the US government and the election and all of that. I'm sure you have been keeping track of the news and seen the updates, but it's basically not looking good. I don't know. I'm really not surprised that Trump won personally, just because I don't know. I've lost faith in humanity. I just really did not believe that Kamala was going to win. I voted for her, period. I wanted to believe. But also with that being said, I don't know, there was just a lot, And although a lot of our current rights would have been protected under her, like the right to abortion, I think some people were kind of taking it a little too far and acting like her winning was going to be some savior thing. It's fundamentally the United States was built on scams. We've talked about that before on this podcast lightly. If you read the book, Lies My Teacher Told Me, that's a great book to kind of just start off your journey of learning about the truth of the US and why it's like this. It was founded on white men taking advantage of everyone else and violence and oppression and the R word and, all these horrible things. So it's not like the Democratic Party as it is today is going to just come in and save the day and be like, oh my God, and a lot of people were critiquing her campaigning and just how the Democratic Party historically is just always their strategy is always just to be like, oh well, we're not like that, instead of making actual changes. So with that being said, I also did not agree with people who chose not to vote. So sorry. That to me was just very ignorant, and it's these things are going to affect you. Yeah, I personally have been seeing a lot of these TikToks on my feed about ladies, this is what we need to do to prepare before January. And on one hand, a lot of them are, realistic, practical things. If you haven't seen these, people are saying things like renew your passport, get your medications, get, stock up on birth control, get the abortion pill if you're able to, plan B, update your vaccinations, all of these things, because they're basically threatening to ban vaccinations. I would recommend getting your yearly checkup, getting STD tested, everything, get your PAP. And people are also saying to get copies of all your major documents. So my thing is, yeah, a lot of these things do make sense and just are logical. Yeah, we should take precaution. But then I personally don't know how much is, I don't want to say fear mongering, because it seems like all, the people who are making these videos have good intentions, but it's I guess for me, the thing has been, and let me know if you relate, finding the balance between living in fear and living in worst case scenario all the time, always thinking about this, always oh my God, and then taking precaution and still being able to live your life. And I'm not trying to say that ignorantly, because obviously we live in a patriarchal country and society. So for me, I feel I've been living a little bit on the fear side of things, because for me, it's especially living in New York, so much of everything is right in your face. So I will walk out the door and get street harassment on my block, as soon as I walk out, and you're on the train, there's a bunch of guys, there's creeps, there's, it's having to take these safety precautions is a lot more in your face. And with all of this in the news and just everything, it's made it that much more aware or heightened, I guess, in my brain, because we already are used to living with that, even if you don't live in New York, we're used to living with creeps, misogynistic men, patriarchy, going on bad dates with when a guy's trying to mansplain something to you, the fear of being roofied, all of these things. It's also a little scary that so many of those guys are pro-Trump and so excited for this new for round 2, and it's all the red pill guys fantasy. And you think about it and it's I guess things were never that good. And one time I was thinking about that, because I think it was around the time of the pandemic when people are like, I can't believe we're living through this historical event. And then this old man actually made a TikTok that was like, well, there's always been something, you know, like there's been the Great Depression, there's been this war, that war, like there's always something. And one time I actually Googled what was the best, bro, this was horrible. I don't even know why I thought I would get a real answer out of this, but I Googled like what was the best time like in history, like was there ever a good time? And all the top results were like the 1950s, and it's like, for who? A white man? Because, babe, that's, like, when the housewives were getting lobotomized. Like, even if we're just talking about, like, the white family unit, it's like, the women weren't even happy in these, like, nice middle-class, like, perfect vintage family on a fridge magnet thing, you know? Not to mention everybody else. So, I was kind of like, okay. Like, what? Like, I guess maybe the 1920s? Before Christopher Columbus came? Like, genuinely, when was the best time? Probably the caveman days, to be honest. But then it's like, you might die of hunger. What if you live during the Ice Age? So, I guess what we can learn from this is there's always going to be something. You know, we can, like, take a LOL. We can panic and then take a laugh. And then once we settle down from both of those extremes, we can be like, okay, there's always going to be something, especially given the conditions of our society again and like how it was built. So what can I do realistically to make a change? Because if you are just constantly like reading these news headlines, living in fear, living in constant stress, like you're not going to have a good time regardless. So I really think it is about building community and like what I always say of like taking those small steps, like even just making small talk with someone or like taking that step beyond small talk just in your community, in your neighborhood. For women, especially, like, my sister and I are going to take a self-defense class, which I've never done. It's just one of those things I'm always like, yeah, I'll get to that, and then I just have never done it. So I really want to do that. There's a couple really good ones I've found in New York. So, period, look it up, you know, in your city, carrying self-defense items, just doing things that are going to help you feel empowered. And again, taking those realistic steps, like, maybe buying a Plan B. You can get the discounted ones. They have the same ingredients, you know. Birth control, if that's something that you use. Educating yourself on cycle syncing, different herbs, etc. Yeah, just not getting stuck in that, like, you know, wormhole of bad news and negativity. I'm not saying be ignorant, and I'm not saying, like, don't pay attention to what's going on. But I'm just, like, literally giving myself this advice. Like, babe, you are going to live in constant fear and have a bad time if like you just keep reading this all day. So this brings me to the 4B movement, which you have probably heard about if you are listening to this podcast. If not, it is a movement that started in South Korea in the mid to late 2010s, and 4B stands for 4 no's. I kept thinking people were talking about like a hair type. 4B hair. Literally. Like, I was like, why is everyone talking about 4B hair? Like, but no, it's no, because in Korean, it's the term bi. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but it's literally spelled like B-I. Inclusive queen, though. And it apparently roughly translates to no. So it's like the 4 no's. So it's no sex, no dating, no babies, and no marriage. And this came as a response to the really harsh, misogynistic laws, basically. So they're basically refusing to interact with men. I find this to be very interesting, especially since Sprinkle Sprinkle has been on the rise as well. And just, I feel like even before this, you know, a lot of women are just very fed up with dating men, because it's like look at the complaints these days. It's like men don't want to court women. Just a lot of things that used to work don't work. Women have more options now. We don't have to be with a man to own a home or have our own bank accounts. And so I think a lot of women are kind of coming to terms and realizing that a lot of these guys don't really have that much to offer. They just want to talk about themselves. They bash women. They can't even make you orgasm. A lot of them don't have any money. I was like, what are you good for? I'd rather literally be by myself, or if I'm going to date a man, it needs to be a man that is adding something to my life. a la sprinkle sprinkle and benefiting me in some way. And with this also, it's like, I don't, like, even just for myself, I don't want to, like, have a mindset of, like, every man is, like, a red pill podcast bro. Like, I just don't want to believe that and, like, live my life through that lens. It's like, I want to have hope. I just don't want to be delusional, you know? And we do live in a patriarchal society. So, unfortunately, a lot of men are not going to, like, be... No man is going to be perfect, you know? But a lot of men are not going to be even, like, bare minimum. Now, more than ever, if you are going to date, you need to be really firm with your boundaries and really know what you want. Like, this is not a time for a situationship. This is not a time for, like, oh, like, he just keeps stringing me along, but he just, like, you know? And obviously, like, if a girl is young and just needs to go through that, whatever, your brain's not developed, like, whatever, you don't know something until you know it. But especially for my girlies who we are a little older, we're not a teen, we're not in our early 20s, you need to think really smart and really logical. Especially now, like, period, regardless of who is president or who has majority in the branches, like, even more on top of that now, you know? You need to be really particular with who you give your energy to, who you let access your time, your body, your emotions, everything. Sheer Seven's advice, I feel like, is really on point for this, because it's like, babe, you can't, like, you need to protect yourself. This is an article from the New York Times where they talk about the 4B movement. Internet virality doesn't always equal influence. Even those who have gained followings with some of those ideas or these ideas are somewhat skeptical that they'll be put into practice. I see a video with 100,000 likes about 4B, but I'm curious who's liking that. Are people acting on it? Let me know what you think about that. I feel like you can be influenced by something without doing it 100%, in the sense that maybe you see some videos about 4B and you're like, facts, I need to, like, decenter men a little more, or I want to date differently, I want to date with intention, I only want to date or invest time and energy into a relationship of any kind with a man that's, like, benefiting my life and not just for this illusion or delusion of true love, fairy tale, like, oh my god. And I think you can definitely gain a lot from these ideas and this concept and this movement without necessarily having to 100% commit to it. And I think even just those subtle changes make all the difference, because, like, in no way am I blaming women for, like, men's behavior or actions. But it's like, if a guy thinks that all he has to do in order to get with a girl is just, like, be like, you want to smoke at the park? And, like, the girls are just like, oh my god, like, he's cute and has a dangly earring and, like, takes aesthetic photos for his IG. Like, he must be the one. Okay, like, I'll go, even though, like, I kind of want to go on a date, but I don't know. It's fine. Like, he's just so cool. And then that just keeps working for him. Like, that's just going to keep working for him. But then if all the girlies decide to raise their standards even a little bit and, like, no, I don't want to go to the park. You have to, like, take me on an actual date. Then he's going to start hitting wall after wall. Do what you need to do to prepare for the worst, but let's not, like, overconsume so much content that we're freaking out literally every waking moment and day. You know, again, I would love to hear your thoughts on this, because it is a really big thing right now, bitch, to say the least. And yeah, I definitely have anxiety about it, but so yeah, let me know your thoughts. Another thing that kind of ties into this, honestly, and something that is just important as a woman, so therefore I feel like more important now, is to listen to your emotions. Because, okay, well, let me explain. So there's a lot of advice videos on how to control your emotions, right? Especially when it comes to dating and things like that. However, at the same time, well, and that's kind of like in response to how a lot of women will freak out, you know, and just act out of emotion instead of acting out of logic and, like, what is actually going to get me what I want in this situation, whether it's, like, money from a man or to feel heard or, like, to resolve a conflict or whatever. But at the same time, it's like, because a lot of in general, a lot of women, most women, we're socialized to be nice and pleasant. We hold a lot of that shit in, and I actually was just doing a TikTok live, and this girl was talking in the comments about how she just had her wedding, and multiple people, like, of her friends RSVP'd that they were gonna go and just didn't show up and never said anything to this girl's wedding. And she was like, I don't know, like, I just don't want to, like, start, like, drama. And I'm like, babe, you being angry about that is not starting drama. Like, that's, like, a rightful response, So especially when it comes to friendships and just, like, in general, that does not mean if you feel angry, you need to, like, lash out on someone right then and there. But it's okay to have appropriate responses. And I actually read a statistic once that was, like, women are more likely than men to have autoimmune disorders because of, like, suppressed anger, because we're just not really told we're not taught that it's okay for us to have anger, and we're not taught how to express it healthily. And the same is true for men, just in the sense of, like, anger is kind of the only emotion they're, like, allowed to feel, but even that, they're not really taught as little boys how to express that healthily. So anger is a useful emotion. It tells us when something needs to change, when a boundary has been pushed or crossed, and when we've been violated. So it's very important to act on this, and it saves you so much trouble down the line, especially in friendships, because you know how many times it's like, oh, she did this, it was kind of weird, it kind of actually, like, deep down made me angry, but, like, I don't want to start drama, I don't want to be extra, I think I'm overreacting, so I'm just going to let it go. But then shit builds up, and then you have a falling out for something stupid because of just unsaid things, and it's, like, the last straw. It's like, especially if you're a people pleaser, like, you need to learn how to let somebody know that what they did is not okay. And you can do it in a way that is well thought out. Like, you don't have to angrily lash out at them again. It's still, like, controlling your emotions, but, like, honor your emotions. And I don't want to say act on them, because that's, like, not what I'm trying to say. But if someone violates you, you're allowed to tell them. Learning to advocate for yourself and speak up for yourself, because no one's going to do it for you. And people, whether they're, like, an evil person or not, it's like someone's not going to know the limit unless you tell them the limit. Like, if someone's always being rude to you and you never say anything, maybe they don't even realize they're being rude, because it's like, oh, well, this, like, she's not reacting, so, like, it must be fine. No, that's why you gotta cut it off. Shira7 had a really good tip for the girlies that are people pleasers or that are uncomfortable, speaking up for themselves, or, like, I think she was probably talking about asking a man for some money, but she was like, pretend like someone is paying you to act like that. And I thought that was just such a good little tip, because it just makes it that much easier. We always hear, like, fake it till you make it, and, like, just pretend to be confident, but something about that, it's like, oh yeah, like, you can, like, yeah, someone's paying me to do this, I have to do this, It's like just a different energy. So yeah, I felt so bad for that girl. I don't know if she listens to the podcast, but shout out to you, girly. She was like, I just don't want to deal with it right now. And my advice to her was like, yeah, don't. I mean, you literally just got married a couple days ago. Like, enjoy your time. I don't know if she's going on a honeymoon, but, like, yeah, you do not need to, like, muddy, like, you do not need to have that conversation right now if you don't want to, because it's your wedding. And then my other advice to her was that, have you guys ever noticed that sometimes if someone fucks up and, like, you don't speak out and then they don't really speak out, they'll, like, kind of try to test the waters by being like, oh, hey girl, like, how are you? And just kind of act like nothing has happened. And I feel like men will do that too, but, like, some girls will do that. And that can be your opportunity, I don't know. I used to feel like when I was first learning about healthy communication and all this stuff, like, I used to feel like you always had to talk about something, but sometimes someone is not even worth having a conversation with, because they're not going to see you, they're not going to hear you, you're not going to be received in the way that you, like, want to be, you're not going to be heard, they're not, like, willing to, like, you can't healthily communicate with someone who doesn't know or doesn't want to learn how to healthily communicate. So some things are just better left, like I'm just going to distance myself, and, like, you don't have to be fake. And if they ask you about it, you could tell them. But I don't know if that's bad advice, but sometimes it's, like, a waste of energy and breath to try to, like, work something out with someone who doesn't have that same respect for you. Like, when the issues, like, how, like, someone is as a person it's not just like something they did. It's like, this shows literally the type of person you are. It's like, you're not even worth my time, like my emotional energy at all. Like, why? I don't know if that's avoidant of me. Let me know your thoughts. I'm not saying don't communicate, but like in some instances, it's like, you violated me and now I have to do the work of like patching things up with someone that doesn't even really matter. Like, it's not like a close friend or like, I don't know. But as I get older, I'm just like, I want to save my energy and not waste energy on a dum-dum. So that is all we are going to talk about today, ladies. Trust your intuition, trust your gut feelings. Don't act on your emotions. Like, honor your emotions, but don't always act on your emotions in the moment unless it's telling you to just get away from a situation, But also, again, as a recovering people pleaser and as someone who has had to learn how to tap into anger, honestly, for the people-pleasing girlies, I will just say sometimes it's better to act out of emotion and apologize later than to just hold it in. Honestly. Like, people do it all the time, and it's like, fine. When you're always used to holding back, that's like holding stuff in, and that is not healthy for you physically, literally. So, go off on someone today. No. Be safe. Let's all take a self-defense class. Let me know if you've taken one before. Was that helpful? Get your little weapons, your padlock with the scarf. Y'all seen that video? Get your medication. And don't forget to subscribe to my new newsletter, y'all. It is so cute. I'm gonna do it like every Sunday, maybe every other Sunday if I really don't have anything to say. But also check out my new merch. And you can also book a call with me. I'm looking into different like coaching programs so I can actually like fully get into it. But right now I have this option on my website where we can have like a one-on-one just talk advice sesh. So if you're interested, LMK. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you guys next week. Bye, everyone.